What's up everyone, DPX here, and yes, I have a mustache now. Can say I maybe look like Lalo, maybe. I wasn't really going for that, but it sort of happened. I know I'm extremely late on this. Like, it's been almost a month, but I don't care. I want to talk about Better Call Saul. For some background, I love Breaking Bad. It might be my favorite show of all time. I realized I never made a video about it. But yeah, I love it. It's one of those shows that gets better and better with each season, but I never watched Better Call Saul basically until the series finale dropped. Then I binged the whole thing. From there on until now, like this is like an hour after me finishing the series finale, I watched it. I watched the whole thing. So this video is gonna be a bit different. Obviously a spoiler review because it's been out for quite a bit, and I'm sure you all who clicked on this video know what happens. And also, I'm not just gonna talk about the final season. I'm mostly gonna talk about the final season because a spoiler, it kind of makes the whole rest of the show a lot better, but I'll talk about the other seasons. So yeah, before we get started, you know what to do. Be sure to subscribe, to hit the bell, and leave a comment, or I will sue you. So, Better Call Saul. Again, it was a show I was meaning to watch for a very long time because I fucking love Breaking Bad, but yeah, I just never. Okay, when I said I binged the whole thing from the finale, like when that dropped all the way till now. Kind of a while back, I actually did watch the first episode, and it was a really good first episode, and then I just didn't watch anything else. Not that I was turned off from the show or anything. I just never got around to it, and then I heard a lot of buzz about the series finale, and then it was like, you know, Vince Gilligan did it again. I'm like, wait, Breaking Bad is like my favorite show, if not at least top 2. If it's not my number 1, it's my number 2 at least. I gotta watch Better Call Saul. And here's what I'll say. You might be turned off after the first and second season. When you get to the end of the third season, you kind of have to stick through there. And I know it's a hard ask to watch through, what, like 30 hours of television, but trust me, it's worth it. I'll quickly go over each season before I get to season 6, because again, not only is it more recent and probably what you want to hear me, the fuck did I just say? Probably what you want to hear me talk about the most. I think season 6 kind of retroactively makes all the other seasons better, but I'll get into that. Season 1 is, you know, we see Saul Goodman, but he's not Saul Goodman yet. He's Jimmy McGill, trying to do the right thing, but you know, he's struggling as a lawyer. You know, it starts with him defending 3 high school kids that are clearly guilty without much, like, once you show the videotape, it's like, yeah. And a lot of that was sort of just set up, you know, for the rest of the series, which is fine. It's, you know, the first episode. And basically the whole first season is a slow burn. Looking back at it now, it's way better, but the first season now is like, or the first season originally is, you know, it's just, it kind of introducing you to this world, this, you know, this pre-Breaking Bad world, and I liked it. I like a lot more now after watching the full series. Also, we get introduced to the meth industry and the cartel and Mike and Gus, and I gotta say, if there's another character this show is about, other than Jimmy, Saul, Gene, whatever the fuck you want to call him, if there's any other character, it's Mike. Because, you know, Mike is probably one of my favorite side characters from Breaking Bad, so I'm really happy to see that this show is partially like a Mike show. Like, when we go through all like the meth stuff and the cartel stuff, I feel like we kind of see it through Mike's perspective for the most part, you know? And I really like that. We obviously, when Jimmy gets involved, we see it through his perspective. Sometimes we'll see it through Nacho's perspective, but it's mostly, I feel like Mike is kind of the main character of that side of the story. I really like that, and yeah, in season 1, I'll say that the stuff with Jimmy is way more interesting than the stuff with the cartel and the meth industry. Season 2, it kind of flips, but I also like the amount of depth they gave to Mike, explaining the death of his son. He and his son were both cops, and all the cops were corrupt cops, even Mike, but then his son was like the one cop that was not corrupted, and died because of that. And it's just very sad. There's like an entire episode that's basically just Mike, and it's just a very sad episode. This season's not the best because you're introducing us to this world, this pre-Breaking Bad world, and it's slowly. Vince Gilligan and the writers are taking their time to introduce these characters, Throughout the whole season, we see sort of some banter between Jimmy and Howard, and you're kind of growing to not like Howard. Even with the whole Sandpiper case, like, Howard's willing to take the case but not take Jimmy, and then Jimmy kind of gets really mad at Howard, and then if turns out though Chuck is the one who is stopping Jimmy from joining HHM, which is and then that kind of sets the rest of the relationship between Jimmy and Chuck for the rest of Chuck's time on the show, which we'll get into with season 2. There's some banter in season 2 between Jimmy and Chuck, some back and forth, and it's very heartbreaking. Just that these are two brothers who are just, Jimmy has always tried to impress Chuck, but Chuck just never cared. And we find out in season 3 that Chuck truly never cared. He never believed in Jimmy, which is so sad. And season 2 ends with Jimmy kind of fucking with Chuck and switching a lot of the files, and then we get into season 3, but season 2 is probably my least favorite season of the show, and then I found out that that's kind of the general consensus, that most people think that this is the worst season. Not that it's bad, just because, I don't know, it's more or less the same as the first season in terms of being a slow burn, and also it's a little frustrating for the right reasons, but seeing the self-destructive Jimmy, how he joins the Davis and Maine firm, but he just completely destroys his own career, his own tenure there, and it's sad to see, and it's not particularly the most entertaining thing to watch for the right reasons, but that just means it's just not as good as the other seasons. But season 3 is where things really get going. One of my favorite episodes of the entire series is Chicanery, the one in the court case, and that's the whole episode is just the court case. I don't really that's the whole episode. They're just back and forth. It's very entertaining, and it ends in tragedy with Chuck killing himself because he's been discredited as a lawyer. He's basically, it kind of ruined his career as a lawyer. He's got nothing left. Tells Jimmy that he never mattered to him and kills himself. That's how that season ends. I forgot to mention season 2, the part where we get to see Mike try to kill Hector and the other Salamancas because they killed the 2 people that were kind of innocent. And then we hear Mike's car horn go off. He finds the car. There's a stick pressing the horn, and then notes that says "don't." So that's Gus. And then in season 3, we get to see Gus a little more. Doesn't really do a whole lot, but it's building to season 4. Season 4, Jimmy, I forgot to mention, Jimmy kind of loses his law license. Not kind of, he does lose his law license. So we see him work at this phone store that has no one there, and then buys all the phones and sells them to a bunch of criminals because they're untraceable, and gets into some trouble for that. So even when he doesn't have his law license, even when you know, he still finds a way to be a bit of a sleaze. And I forgot to say, all the schemes that he does, it's so entertaining, because you're kind of on the edge of your seat, or me at least, where we're kind of all just like, Jimmy, don't do this, don't go down this path, please. But it's still very entertaining, and we see how Jimmy just completely cut Chuck out of his life, completely just cut off all feelings for Chuck. And so when people are coming up to him about Chuck, he's kind of dismissive about it. He doesn't care, you know. He tells Howard, like, that's your cross to bear, you know. When he has to give a statement for his reinstatement into, like, as a lawyer, he doesn't even mention Chuck, so they don't give him his law license back immediately because he seemed insincere. And then when he tried again, another statement, and he, you know how it goes. He does this whole speech about Chuck, and then after that he's like, yo, did you see the look on their face? I got them. It's like, and that's the birth of Saul Goodman. Season 5, I forgot to mention, at the end of Season 4, we meet Lalo, and probably the best character in this show. At least maybe a best new character in this show. Definitely top 3 favorite villains of this entire universe. He's just, you know, he's a psychopath, just like all the other Salamancas. But he's, you know, he's just charming, and, like, he'll kill you, and then another person there will be screaming, and he's like, shh. You know? He's that kind of villain. And he's just so entertaining. Season 5 comes along, and Lalo's kind of the main villain, and he's kind of bringing Jimmy into this world, into this cartel world. And it especially ends with, like, where, like, Nacho tries to kill Lalo. Like, tries to get people to kill Lalo. Lalo, like, fucks up those people, and then he knows it was Nacho. So that leads us into Season 6. Now, Season 6. I don't know, while this is a review of Season 6, I feel like it's mostly a review of the whole series, because, again, Season 6 really kind of brings the whole series together. You know what I mean? Especially with all these Cinnabon shots, how they all, like, Jimmy working at, or Gene working at Cinnabon, at the beginning of each season. I kind of put 2 and 2 together. I knew, you know, Saul Goodman at the end of Breaking Bad went to the vacuum store and got a new identity. This is probably what he's doing after that. But now he's always looking over his shoulder, always afraid someone's gonna find out that he is Saul Goodman. And this is kind of where we get that sort of payoff, we get to see all that, you know, come to fruition. But before that, we get a good few episodes, sort of picking up after Season 5, where, like, Nacho is on the run from Lalo and the other Salamancas. And I want to talk about Nacho real quick, because I barely talked about him, actually. I thought he was just a Salamanca at first, without, you know, before they really introduced him, when he was just there with the Salamancas at the beginning, I thought he was a Salamanca. And then, like, we find out, no, he's just a friend of theirs, he works with them. But then we also find out he's definitely not anything like them. You know, he's like, he's just a more reserved version. Like, yeah, he's not a good guy necessarily, but he's kind of like a semi-Walter White in a way. He kind of was brought into this world, and, you know, he's a good person who got... Sorry, something happened. I kind of forgot. Yeah, Nacho, he's a good person who got sucked into this world and got caught up with the wrong people. I do kind of wish we got a little more of him this season, because he gets killed off a little too early in the season. 13, in episode 13 episode 3 out of 13 episodes. But the way he went out was really cool, and the way he tells Hector, you know, I'm the one who put you in that chair. That was really cool when he did that. We also get to see Lalo again in this season, of course. Again, I also feel like he got killed off a little too early. I mean, it wasn't too early. He got killed off in episode 8, and it was really cool the way he got killed off. It's like in the dark, and Gus shoots him, but you don't know if he shot him until we see him on the ground. So that was really cool. And my God, the scene where he kills Howard, it makes a lot of sense that we never really got to see the lawyer world cross over with this meth world until now, because the reason why they sort of slowly, it took this long to have them cross over, this is the reason why. To have it, become so much of a shock. You would never imagine someone like Howard interacting with someone like Lalo, because if he did, he would die, like how he did. And by the way, that was the end of the first half of the season. That was the end of season 6A. Lalo just murders Howard just for being there, and then he's just shh, let's talk. You don't get any follow-up to that for another 2 episodes, 2 months. And that's crazy. That's the note you ended on. Also, the episode Fun and Games is kind of the last episode before we get to that time jump, and it's so sad. This scene between Jimmy or Saul and Kim, this is such a tragic love story, if you know what I mean, because both of them were trying to do the right thing. Kim was she was a really good lawyer. A lot of people in the show liked her. And then as her and Jimmy became a couple, both of them kind of went down a bad path. Jimmy just kept doing the wrong thing, and Kim kind of went along with it and almost enabled him. And it's really heartbreaking to see that. And then at the end of this episode, where they where they're going through their divorce, pretty much, it's sad. And the performances from both Bob Odenkirk and Ray Seahorn, it just completely made that scene, you know what I mean? And then where I start to get a little iffy on this season, not that it's particularly a bad thing, because this season's overall fan-fucking-tastic, where I start to, what's the word? It's not even that big of an issue for me, really, because the storytelling's amazing. It's just weird, structurally, if you know what I mean. How after this, we get a time jump, and it's after Breaking Bad. Jimmy, who I guess Saul, is now Gene, working at the Cinnabon and in Omaha, and yeah, and then that's the next 4 episodes basically, and I liked what we got, but kind of introduced Jeffy. We don't really care about him, or I didn't care much for him. I don't know, it just seemed kind of weird that you get all these episodes, and then in between episode 9 and 10, you get a 3-4 year time jump. And I guess it maybe would have made more sense if this was another season, or the other half of the season. But no, it's half of the other half. You know what I mean? Not even. It's it's 4 out of 6 of the episodes. But still, I really liked what we saw, and kind of makes this show both a prequel to Breaking Bad and an epilogue to Breaking Bad. And I kind of like because it's sort of, at first it sort of seemed Saul was there to enable Walter White and his descent into Heisenberg. When he kind of escaped from in Breaking Bad, I kind of thought that he's on the run because he was an enabler. And while yes, that is kind of the case, I kind of it kind of made me see it in a different way this season. It kind of made it seem like, this is how much of an effect on basically everyone around him Walter White had. You know what I mean? Jimmy, Saul, Gene, just is one of many people that knew Walt that got affected by his descent into Heisenberg. Yes, there are things that Saul, Jimmy could have done to avoid, going down this path. But I just like how we got to see this in like a different light, if you know what I mean. And those final 2 episodes, goddamn, man. But before we get there, there was something that I'm sure a lot of people were really looking forward to with this season of Better Call Saul going in. And that was appearances from Walt and Jesse. Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul reprising their roles as Walt and Jesse. Obviously, they do look a bit older than they did. That's just whatever. There's a problem people had with El Camino. It's whatever. You can't really change that. They go with sort of a smaller budget, so they don't use de-aging technology. You know what I mean? But I like the way they were shown in here. When Jesse and Walt met Saul in season 2 of Breaking Bad, Walt still had some Walter White in him, you know what I mean? He wasn't completely Heisenberg yet. But here, when we see Walt and Jesse taking Saul into the RV, Walt is just a complete dick to Jesse. And I just thought that was cool because we don't really see Walter White, we see Heisenberg. Which obviously, yeah, he becomes Heisenberg, but I was just at this time of the Breaking Bad show, he wasn't completely Heisenberg yet. So I just like that. I don't know. I just like that. And it didn't feel like fan service, if you know what I mean. They were essentially flashback scenes when we saw Walt and Jesse, but they weren't fan service. So I liked that they weren't fan service. They were there to tell a story. And yes, this does, by, just by principle, I guess, it's the one season that kind of requires you to watch Breaking Bad before watching Better Call Saul. But I feel like the writers and Vince Gilligan and everyone knew that most people watching this would have already seen Breaking Bad. So that's just whatever. But then the last 2 episodes, the penultimate episode where like Gene is discovered as Walt. No, that would be a twist if he was Walter White. No, if he's discovered as Saul Goodman, and you're kind of like, oh shit, you don't know what to think. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know if I wanted him to, get away with it, if I wanted him to die, or if I just wanted him to get arrested. And like the breakdown Kim had on the bus was, I don't even have words for that. The finale though was so well done. It's a rather low-key finale, but it's just a very well done finale. Where you get sort of a satisfying conclusion to Jimmy, Saul, Gene. We see that he still has some Jimmy left in him, and it's kind of a contrast from Walter White in Breaking Bad, if you know what I mean. By the end of the show, while Walter or Heisenberg, he goes on and gets revenge and kind of helps some people out, ties up his loose ends. By the end of Breaking Bad, Walt is fully become Heisenberg. I really like how in this, by the end of Better Call Saul, Saul still has some Jimmy in him. Because by the end he goes, my name's not Saul, it's Jimmy. I really love that. He confesses to everything. He finally owns up to what he does. He finally tells the truth. And he's not running a scam, not doing any of that. He owns up to his mistakes and his crimes. And he spends, 80 years in prison the rest of his life? And he's completely fine with that. He has And like he's worshipped in prison. All of them know him as like a celebrity, as you're Saul Goodman, you know, and he is way more loved there than he was working at Cinnabon. And I really like that. So in a weird sense, Jimmy got a happy ending. In a very weird sense, Vince Gilligan and the writers knew how to make somebody going to prison for the rest of their life. They found a way to make that into a happy ending. That is, like, I don't know how you pulled that off. They pulled that off. So in the end, Better Call Saul as a whole, honestly just because of this season, makes the whole thing worth it. I really do believe you should watch through the first couple of seasons because it starts to really get going in season 3, and then it's all better when it ends. When, you know, at the end of this series, the series finale makes the whole thing worth it. And I don't know how I'm gonna. This is kind of a tricky season to rank, to score. You know what I mean? I think it's the best season of the whole show, but obviously it has some issues. You know, I mentioned some issues, but at the same time, it makes the whole series worth it. It makes the whole series worth watching, and like from beginning to end, then you realize this is one of the best written shows of all time. I don't like it as much as Breaking Bad, because for me personally, Breaking Bad it hooked me immediately. Even if the first season is a little wonky in comparison to the others, it still, you know, hooked me immediately. This one didn't completely hook me until season 3. And so yeah, but after the end of season 6, you know why the first couple of seasons are very slow. It's a slow burn. So you know what? Even though I did have some issues, I'm going to give the final season of Better Call Saul a 10 out of 10. So yeah, that's my review for Better Call Saul. Mostly season 6, but I reviewed the other season. Not really reviewing them, but I touched on them. I had to give my thoughts on them. What do you guys think of this show? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Have you seen the show? Have you not seen the show? If you haven't seen the show, I don't know why you watch this, because I fucking like spoiled almost everything. There's no way I spoiled everything. 6 seasons of television. I definitely missed some things, but what do you guys think? Anything about the show, let me know down below. Anyways, be sure to like the video, comment, subscribe, or I will sue you. Bye!